Max Verstappen isn't buying into the dream of a five-peat, no matter how much Helmut Marko clings to the idea. Despite the public confidence of the 82-year-old Red Bull advisor that Verstappen could still match Michael Schumacher's legendary five-title streak with Ferrari from 2000 to 2004, the Dutchman remains unconvinced. It's a rare public difference in opinion between Verstappen and Marko. And after the sprint race at Spa-Francorchamps, the stats are doing little to support Marko's optimism. Verstappen now finds himself trailing championship leader Oscar Piastri by a daunting 81 points, with McLaren teammate Lando Norris also ahead by 65. To add insult to injury, even after taking the sprint win, Verstappen only started Sunday's Belgian Grand Prix from fourth place. Meanwhile, the McLaren duo led the grid from the front row, proof that the RB21, much like last year's car, still has its wild side. While Verstappen has maintained much of the pace that secured last season's dominance, the new and improved MCL39 has consistently outshone him. And although there are still more points up for grabs, the 27-year-old has long dismissed the idea of a comeback. So when Marko's hopeful remarks were raised yet again, Verstappen didn't hesitate to finally put the conversation to rest. "Helmut is not in the car," he said. "I understand that you have to be positive about it. On the other hand, I'm always very realistic about what I feel in the car, and then when I look at certain onboards of other cars, I know enough." After the Belgian Grand Prix, Verstappen admitted that he never really felt he was in that fight, as he spent the entire race stuck behind third-place finisher Charles Leclerc, and ultimately revealed where Red Bull fell short. After dominating the sprint with a low downforce setup that gave him blistering straight-line speed, Verstappen and Red Bull went in the opposite direction for Sunday's race. Expecting rain, they dialed up the downforce, sacrificing top-end speed in favor of grip. It was a gamble that didn't pay off. With the start delayed by 80 minutes due to heavy rain and poor visibility, conditions changed quickly once the race finally got underway. Within 10 laps, drivers were already switching to slicks, turning the expected wet weather showdown into something closer to a dry sprint. Precisely the kind of scenario Red Bull's setup wasn't optimized for. As a result, Verstappen found himself stuck in fourth, unable to mount a challenge on Leclerc and left pointing to Red Bull's current weakness as the reason why. The Dutchman said, "On the Inters, we were naturally a bit faster because of the setup that we had on the car. It was just very tough to pass. At one time, I was really close going into Eau Rouge, but you lose so much downforce when you are behind. The car becomes really unstable, so you couldn't really keep it on the road. We went onto the slick tires, and to be honest, every lap, I just felt that Charles was pulling away a little bit. Then he had one mistake where I think he lost about 1.5 seconds. That's why it looked like I was back in the fight, but realistically, I never really felt I was in that fight. Of course, I always try to get into the fight, but today, partly because of the rear wing that we chose, because we hardly did any wet laps in the end, which generally I think is a shame. I think we could have gone racing. That's not ideal, but the biggest problem is still how we keep our tires alive in the race. We're just not strong enough on that." When asked to sum up his weekend overall, the Dutchman had this to say: "It's of course not where I want to be, but we are trying. Yesterday was a positive result for us, but it is not a realistic result because we are way slower. But today, I tried." All in all, with the decision-making and the setup that we chose with the wing didn't help. But nevertheless, P3 was probably the maximum possible with the ideal scenario, and unfortunately, this didn't happen today. Yuki Tsunoda, on the other hand, looked like a driver reborn at the Belgian Grand Prix, bolstered by a dose of Red Bull's latest upgrades. The Japanese racer put in a stunning performance in qualifying, securing 7th on the grid and clocking a lap just 4/10 shy of Max Verstappen, a personal best in one-lap pace this season. Tsunoda had slipped in the driver's standings, and many might have assumed Red Bull would quietly move on from the 25-year-old. But Tsunoda kept his head down, kept pushing, and now it looks like the tide may be turning in his favor. A key figure in this potential resurgence is their new team principal Laurent Mekies. Unlike the recently departed Christian Horner, Mekies appears to bring a fresh energy and a personal touch that Tsunoda has embraced. The driver admitted he was genuinely moved seeing his new boss smile at his performance over the weekend. For the first time in a while, he feels supported. That kind of backing may be exactly what Tsunoda needs. Mekies, who is widely regarded as someone who excels in driver management, could be Red Bull's secret weapon moving forward. With nearly 25 years of experience, Mekies spent the last 2 seasons leading the Junior Racing Bulls squad, building a close rapport with Tsunoda along the way. That foundation, according to 2016 world champion Nico Rosberg, is already making a difference. Speaking on Sky Sports F1, Rosberg noted that Tsunoda no longer feels alone within the Red Bull family, a subtle but important shift that could fuel his rise. He has now really empowered Yuki Tsunoda this weekend. He has given him the new upgrade, that he can have the new floor himself as well, not just Verstappen. He gives him a thumbs up and a smile after sessions. After qualifying, they connected as Yuki was driving in. He saw Laurent on the pit wall, giving him a big smile and a thumbs up. That makes a huge difference to a driver. When suddenly he sees that he has the support from the team. Whereas before, he said, I heard that he felt like he was on a bit of an island on his own, in a team that was for Max Verstappen, and they only cared about Max Verstappen. Now, Laurent straight away is also caring about Yuki. Even so, Yuki Tsunoda is far from satisfied. He was left frustrated at Spa after a costly pit stop miscommunication saw his hopes of scoring points slip away. The Japanese driver's race was undone by a delayed switch from intermediate to slick tyres, coming 1 lap later than most of the field. In a race where timing was everything, that hesitation proved pivotal, ultimately leaving Tsunoda to settle for a disappointing 13th place finish. When asked about the timing of his pit stop, he said, very frustrating, it already started from a miscommunication. Or I don't know what to say more than that to swap the tyres. They called me at a late moment, just after the pit entry. For 1 lap, this kind of long track is very decisive, and unfortunately, I lost that opportunity. I lost 4 positions, 5 positions, whatever, and I was stuck behind Pierre Gasly. I tried my best to overtake him, but unfortunately, I couldn't. As we all know by now, Christian Horner is no longer at the helm of Red Bull Racing. But that's not where the story ends. Despite his departure, Horner has remained connected to the team, and to Max Verstappen. Though no longer calling the shots trackside, he's reportedly been in contact with the Dutch star, sending messages of support both before and after the race. Interestingly, whispers of Horner's fading influence go back further than the announcement. According to former F1 driver and Sky Sports commentator Martin Brundle, the shift may have started as early as the 2024 Bahrain Grand Prix. Speaking alongside 2016 world champion Nico Rosberg, Brundle confessed he had almost considered Jos as team principal of Red Bull, highlighting just how much sway Verstappen's camp seemed to hold amid growing internal unrest. Rosberg then asked Brundle, 1 year ago, the Verstappen camp, Max Verstappen's dad, said Horner has to go now. He's going to destroy this team. Do you think that played a role now? Verstappen said to Red Bull, either Horner goes or we go to Mercedes. Brundle admitted he had already come to believe that the Verstappen camp had effectively taken the reins at Red Bull. Absolutely, it's become a one-driver team, and I think that's something they've got to fix. There's no way the hierarchy in Austria would have done. The Verstappens would have bought into this. They wouldn't have been blindsided. So there's no way that Max will now be leaving the team because of that. They would have ensured that before they made that move with Christian. How did Red Bull do in their first race weekend moving on from Christian Horner? Would you say that his sacking was a step in the right direction? Let's talk about it in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.